I, female 29, am a huge nerd and bookworm, so my book collection is rather impressive. However, my boyfriend of 3 years, David, 32, and I have just moved in together, which is proving to be more challenging than I originally thought. As mentioned above, my book collection is rather large, but he never mentioned anything about it, and the books will be in my office anyway. I work from home. However, there is a slight issue he has always had that he only now mentioned. I was raised trilingual and I learned English later in life as well, so technically I speak 4 languages, with English being my weakest, so I apologise for any mistakes. Because of that, my book collection is rather diverse, including books in all 4 languages. If I can, I prefer to read the book in the language it was originally written in, and only reach for translations if I don't speak the language. This has never been a problem, and David never mentioned anything about this until now. He was helping me unpack the books, and I noticed that he'd put all non-English books in a separate pile. I asked him about that, and he said we didn't need them and to throw them away. I said that you never throw books away, you donate them instead, but I didn't plan on getting rid of any of my books. He argued that it was pointless to keep books not in English, as they only take up space and they're only for show, and no one but me even reads them. I told him, they're my books. I could consider downsizing my collection if it was a space issue, but since we have the space and they're in my office, I'm not getting rid of them. He got really annoyed, so I told him that I didn't need his help anymore. Yesterday I went for coffee with a friend, and when I got home, I found my bookshelves mostly empty, with some candles and figurines placed where my books used to be. I asked David where my books were, and he told me it was a surprise, and I came back home too early. His mother helped him get rid of all my useless books. He bagged them up, put them in his car, and was about to take them to the skip. I was absolutely furious, and he told me I could always replace them with books in English. I grabbed all my books and went to my office. I installed a lock on my office door so we can't throw them away, but I am so very confused about all of this. Then, to top this off, his sisters called me, one of them screaming her head off because I am an inconsiderate C-word and to get off my high horse and stop pretending I'm better than everyone else. Am I the idiot here? Am I really wrong about not wanting to get rid of my books? Wow, he threw away your books even though he knew you wanted them. Even though you had plenty of room for them and he didn't even need to look at them since they were in your office, because they made him feel inadequate since they were in languages he couldn't read. Oh, and he involved his mother. Girl, tell him to move out immediately. This relationship is absolutely over. Remember that abusers often use big milestones like moving in, getting married, or pregnancy to escalate the abuse. This is just the first step of many he will take in asserting control over you. Get out now before it gets really bad. And it's already really bad. Absolutely keep the books, throw away the boyfriend. The idea that he'd surprise you by throwing away your treasured possessions is just mind-boggling. If you had vinyl, would he tell you that streaming is just fine and throw that away for you? Or will he decide that there's no reason to vacation anywhere they don't speak English? This guy and his family seem like a poor match for you. Do you really want to combine households with someone so clueless about what matters to you? Who made him king? Why does he think that he can just take your stuff? And what qualifies him to decide which books to keep and which to toss? You are underreacting. Get away from this man and his family. Do you really want to be permanently connected to a family who will steal and dispose of your belongings behind your back? Imagine raising a child with this man and his busybody mother and sister. Awful. Get out while you can. The lock on your door won't change who you live with. It honestly baffles me that you even have to consider if you're the idiot. Your boyfriend and his sister are clearly jealous and are upset that you're trilingual. I might be stretching here, but it could also be a case of internalized prejudice against certain languages or races. I think you should seriously consider the option of separation. It will only get worse. Dump him and find someone who wants you to shine. My husband and I have 3 girls, pre-tween, kindergartner, or preschooler. Both of us have very demanding jobs and we both work long hours and occasionally travel for work. When my oldest was born, we planned on getting a nanny, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law didn't want her to be raised by a stranger, so they moved in with us and took care of her, helped around the house when my maternity leave ended. As much as I love my mother-in-law and father-in-law, I can't live with them. My husband felt the same, so after a few months we bought them a house very close to ours. It's in our name, but we furnished it and paid for everything except for groceries. The house has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. The girls currently share a room and have a twin over queen bed. My oldest has the top bunk twin and the younger 2 share the queen. The younger 2 used to fight over blankets, so we got them each a sleeping bag. My preschooler has a unicorn, my middle child has a mermaid, and my oldest one also wanted one and got an elephant. They aren't like camping sleeping bags, they're thick and extremely soft and the girls love them. My brother-in-law, sister-in-law and their kids, a young female child, a male preschooler, were visiting and the kids stayed in my kids' room. I wasn't thrilled when I heard they were staying in my kids' room, but my mother-in-law assured me that she would take all the toys out and that the kids just liked the bunk bed. My kids were spending the night with their grandparents for one of the nights my brother-in-law and his family was there. I told my mother-in-law that my kids would get their room, and everything went fine until I got to the house, with the kids and my niece and nephew were both throwing tantrums because they didn't want to give back the sleeping bags. I pulled my mother-in-law aside and asked why the kids were using my kids' sleeping bags, and she said that the kids liked them and that families share. This is my kids' bedding. I get them sharing some toys, but not their sleeping bags, especially when she knew that they'd have my girls that night. They were too big for her to throw both of them in the washing machine, and at that point, it was too late for them to do 2 loads of laundry, so my kids had to go without their sleeping bags. I told her from now on, none of the other grandkids will be sleeping in my kids' rooms. We're giving my oldest her own room since I can't trust her to respect their belongings, and that if this happens again, she won't be allowed to watch my kids anymore. My husband agrees that she shouldn't have let them use the sleeping bags, or at least wash them before my kids arrive, but he thinks I went overboard. Am I the idiot? OP, I think your mistake was that you didn't pile up all of your possessions in the center of your cave and sleep on them. That's really the only good way to protect a dragon horde. Sometimes I wonder what kind of world you all live in. You are the idiot. You held your mother-in-law to an expectation that she didn't know existed. It's very normal for kids to share blankets. It's reasonable mother-in-law didn't know this would upset you since it sounds like you only specified toys shouldn't be shared. Not wanting resources shared is reasonable enough, but it sounds like you're talking to your mother-in-law like a child who broke a rule, instead of being grateful for the childcare they provide. You bought a house for them to live in so that they could provide childcare for your kids while not being under your roof. I understand you paid for it, but it is their home and they have a right to have guests and also privacy. They're providing you with a service, and in return, you're paying for their housing. If I were your in-laws and you were this nitpicky just because you believe you have financial control over me, I would terminate the current agreement, move into my own place, and leave you to sort out your own childcare. I, male 38, have a lot of tattoos. It's just something I like. My mom hates each and every one. My mom, 61, loves me and I love her. She does, however, have the most annoying hobby in the world. She loves asking me questions that I cannot answer. For example, this summer I went to my cousin's, female 24, wedding. Haven't seen my cousin in 7 years. I live in a different state. But she asked me how my cousin met her fiancé. I literally only knew about the wedding because my mum told me. I will tell my mum that my son, tween, is out at a friend's house for the night. She'll ask me where my son's friend's parents went to school. Those aren't even the most extreme examples. The worst was when she asked me how my sister got pregnant since she and her husband were using birth control. Like, how would I know? So I told her if she kept asking me questions like that, I would tattoo the words "no sé" on my forearm. That's Spanish for I don't know. Well, she asked about my brother-in-law's shoe size a week ago. So I saw her today and my arm had the Saniderm on it from a fresh tattoo. So she shuddered, crossed herself, and asked what I defiled my body with now. So I showed her. She got upset and called me a shameless idiot. And now she's mad at me for desecrating my body to make a childish point and embarrass her. I told her hundreds of times to stop asking me questions that I had no way of answering. She said that she was just making conversation. I think she finally gets the point, but my dad called me and said I was an idiot for permanently marking my body to make my mom think before asking me a question. Am I the idiot? Honestly, you're missing great opportunities to make stuff up. Cousin's shoe size? I think it's a 15. I believe he has to custom order them from the same place that makes clown shoes. Somewhere in Missouri, I think. Not the idiot for the sheer commitment to the punchline. Bravo. Yes, ridiculous questions deserve ridiculous answers. How did the cousin meet his wife? Crazy story. She was riding in the roller coaster that hit him. It was love at first sight. So romantic. How did Sis get pregnant? Apparently, brother-in-law's liable to knock up anyone within a foot of him. Though I want to offer just one serious line. I'm sorry I upset you this much, Mom. That wasn't my intent, but it's just really frustrating and disheartening when you ask me questions I can't possibly know the answer to. I love you, Mom, you know I do, and I love talking with you, which becomes difficult to do with those questions. So, can we talk about stuff we can talk about? I really like our conversations, or something like that anyway. You are the idiot, OP. She's just making conversation with you. I also wouldn't take your mom's questions as something she can necessarily control. Some people truly do talk without thinking, and while certainly annoying, they're not trying to be in most cases. I have an older co-worker who is similar, but suck it up and try not to call her out on it. I've been dating my girlfriend for about 3 months now, and she recently invited me to spend the holidays with her family. I can see us getting serious, so this seemed like a great next step in our relationship. Except for one weird, in my opinion, thing she sprung on me. I was expected to buy all of the women in her family gold or sterling silver jewellery as a gift. She said it was a cultural custom and I'd be expected to honour it or I'd look really rude. I'd literally never heard of this before, so I asked if this was just a family custom and she said no, it was cultural. It seemed really specific and honestly expensive. So I asked around other friends and colleagues from the same background, I live in a diverse area, and they were all baffled as well. I brought it up again and told her what others said, and she blew up, saying that I was purposefully trying to embarrass her and that she could no longer trust me to share parts of her culture with me. I feel horrible for making her cry, but I still feel weird about it. Was I the idiot? You are the idiot. Doing research and asking questions about stuff like that is fine. However, just because she and your friends come from similar backgrounds doesn't mean they share the exact same beliefs. I'm an immigrant to the US. Still, my family's cultural traditions are particular and don't conform to many more common customs and norms from my country. Man, not the idiot, but you're getting scammed. Please don't get gaslighted. For my culture, you would get gold for a wedding, but never for the first visit. If it turns out to be something cultural, why would she be offended by her boyfriend's desire to learn more about the culture? Sounds pretty suspicious to me. She probably told her family that her man is rich and wants him to play up to that. OP, I think this girl is either trying to use you or another person in her family has told her to do this. You've only been dating for 3 months. It's not a long-term relationship yet. I suspect you're being used. Maybe not directly by her. Yep. You have discovered a literal, gold and sterling silver digger. It's good that you found out now. If you stay with her, you only have yourself to blame for the results. The most generous interpretation of her request is that perhaps she is from a culture that has historically had arranged marriages. So the first meeting with the guy was extremely important because he was already the fiancé. I don't know. But also, sterling silver earrings on eBay are about $5. You could choose to honour her request and be super cheap about it. My father, 63, left my mom, 62, when I, 37, was 10 years old. He was having a baby with his girlfriend, now wife, 50. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and didn't finish college. She'd gotten pregnant with my older brother, 42. My father was an idiot, making the divorce as crappy as possible for my mom. We ended up moving in with my paternal grandparents. He was their only child and they were disappointed in him. They helped my mom go back to school. Once she finished school, she wanted to pay them back, but they wouldn't let her. They also basically disowned my father. He was invited over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that was about it. They did love their other grandchildren, though. They always provided gifts and contributed to their education. My grandmother passed away a few years ago from breast cancer, and my grandfather passed away last year, and he left everything to my brother and me. It wasn't a huge estate, and it's not life-changing money. Both my brother and I are well established in our careers. They left my father $500. The lawyer explained that it was a way of preventing him from being able to challenge the will. They also left each of my half-siblings $10,000. My brother and I each got over $100,000. My grandfather said that since my brother and I had grown up without a father by his choice, but his other children had, then he felt this was fair. He also left my mom his house and some money. She'd been taking care of them for a long time and they never stopped thinking of her as a daughter. My father approached my brother and me recently saying that his other kids are struggling with finances and that we should split everything with them since we don't need the money. He also tried to get my mom to renounce her inheritance. She laughed in his face and asked for all the child support he owed. I get that it's not my half-siblings' fault, but they had a dad to take care of them growing up and we didn't, so neither my brother nor I agreed to share. Now my father, his wife, and all my half-siblings are calling us idiots for being so greedy and not helping them through the hard time they're going through. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You know that your deadbeat father isn't going to leave you or your brother anything when he dies. Your grandmother and grandfather loved you and wanted to help you guys, and I'm glad your mom had their support. They sound like wonderful people. This. OP, I would block all of these awful people, or, if you have a relationship with your half-siblings, text them in a group chat. We are no longer going to discuss our inheritance. You need to drop this topic. You won't get us to change our minds, but it will forever ruin our relationship. If they keep at it, then block them on everything. You don't owe your half-siblings anything. Your grandparents are trying to do right by you after failing to raise a son that would. A 36-year-old idiot had an affair with a 23-year-old who I'm sure knew he was married and knocked her up. He made your family's life miserable, didn't pay child support, and was such an idiot that his parents basically disowned him. Now he and his entitled wife are throwing a fit because you won't give money to their kids, who you barely know. Yeah, again, not the idiot. Not your circus, not your monkeys. Your grandparents were good people, and Granddad knew what he was doing. You owe Bio Dad and his new family nothing.